Good evening and welcome to the July 25th, 2013 Environmental Advisory Council meeting. First order of business is the review and approval of last month's minutes. If there are no changes or notes on that, do we have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's done. I was just suggesting that we don't have much in the way of announcements this month, but I know, Sally, you have something to tell us about symposium you were at a few months ago?
Yes, this announcement came out from Delaware Valley Green Building Council, which was behind a big sustainability symposium that went on in March. And they sent around an announcement that videos of about 24 individual sessions are available now for watching. So you go to dvgbc.org and look further for the Pennsylvania, New Jersey Sustainability Symposium. The topics include green schools, the business model for sustainability, Philadelphia cultural and sports institutions, LEED, commercial real estate owners and tenants, electric vehicles, and much more than that.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else have any announcements? Okay, let's move along to our work group reports. And we're going to start off with the Radnor Green Team discussion as we normally do these days. And Sally and I were there, and it was only 2 days ago. And it was pretty productive. I mean, you know, it's fits and starts, but I thought we had some good discussion. And well, I guess what I'll do is tag team with you, Sally, and just talk about the 5 different work groups that we have now within the Green Team, and you know what the status is, because it's important for us to make some good progress in the next few weeks here. I'm making a presentation to the Board of Commissioners at the August 12th, or you know, I'm not sure. Is it the August 12th meeting? Anyway, it's coming up, and they are asking for a progress report on how the greenhouse gas action plan is coming along, and they want to hear from the Green Team, and I volunteered to make that report on behalf of the Green Team. So it's important that we move as much along we can in the next couple of weeks, so we have some good positive stuff to report. But I think we do. So to start off, I'll talk about the street lights, and that is something that I am working closely with. That's my work group on the Green Team, and what we found is that there is an RFP that's going out for the streetlight maintenance project contract. Excuse me. It is a contract that is typically a 2-year contract, and it's coming up for renewal, and it's a little sooner than we had hoped. It's actually going to go out in the next month or so. And we felt when we met that there might not just really be enough time to do the necessary our homework on new technologies and how to incorporate them into a maintenance contract before this RFP goes out in the next month or so. But on the positive side, we heard that there are ways of, instead of having a 2-year contract, we could have a 1-year contract. And that would enable us to, you know, do our homework in the next 10 months and get this up for an RFP next year. So I'm happy and encouraged about that. We had some discussion about local, our neighbors in townships, municipalities around us that have LEDs already installed, either test projects or whatnot, and thought it might be smart to have our little group or an expanded group go on a little nighttime field trip. Yeah, check it out and that kind of stuff. So there's still a chance that we might get a little bit of text into this RFP coming up that has to do with maybe a real small pilot study, maybe 6 lights or something like that, and have that as an alternative.
Is the RFP, is that something being issued by the township?
Yes.
Okay, so township's asking for essentially proposals for some lighting, and the question is, can we build in an LED component, or is it a little early?
Yeah, there's the contract is fairly simple. It's basically kind of like if a light burns out, screw in the same thing into what just burnt out.
Right.
It's not an upgrade thing, it's just kind of a maintenance. So it's this, a major streetlight project would not really be part of a maintenance project normally, but I had thought that a inexpensive way to implement positive progress towards a streetlight replacement project would be to do it on an as burned out process. So if one burns out, instead of screwing in in kind, you upgrade it at that time, and is likely to cost more money than a normal in kind replacement contract. So if we're going to do this, we need to make sure we do it right. We need to make sure we do our homework. We make sure the lights that we are recommending are going to look good, and that we're not going to get negative feedback right at the beginning of a streetlight project, and then sort of kill it right away. So
I just had a stray thought that might fit with all that. Here and there, we're still actually doing development in the township, whether it's a complete tear down or some vacant properties, and occasionally that requires public streets with lighting. I wonder if prospectively we could require that new fixtures be evaluated for LED or state-of-the-art other technology. Maybe make it part of a guidance package for builders or something when you're talking to different people on staff.
yeah, it's a good idea. And I'm wondering if
It would be a
there's
free, potentially free, not free, but it would be a great way to test as well.
because
Because you have to put something in.
by private dollars.
Well, it might, I don't know if it's always by private dollars, but it may be.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Another thought, understand that we're not ready to ask for proposals for anything too dramatic, but would it be reasonable this round to ask different contractors to at least give us some sense of their experience with LED, or some sense of what they've seen and what they've considered in that space? Then we could use the RFP process at least to start gathering info.
Mhm.
Something like that, or even ask if, as part of the RFP, they could price in a small demo or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we're suggesting.
So
It's-
that may be
It's going to be more like a line item as an adder
Yeah.
on the contract that's going to say, if funds are available in the township and the commissioners so decide to spend a couple $1,000s, we at least will know what their charge is going to be to put in a light
Right,
for us.
right.
And that's
To do
kind
a
of,
demo.
yeah,
kind of.
and Steve Norsini had suggested that he was interested in doing something like that for this contract. So all
That
we're trying to
makes
do is before we send this out, just work up the wording,
Got it.
maybe do some quick research on, maybe some different models and
Right.
whatnot.
Right.
Another thought that may be pertinent. We relamped our retail store in King of Prussia, and we went to LED tube lights. And it was so easy to do that basically they disconnected the old fluorescent ballast. And I know that most streetlights are probably not fluorescent, but they disconnected that and put a slightly different fitting. That actually, it's, instead of two sides, you only had to have one side that was, so to speak, hot. So it took them about a minute to change a fixture. And the big cost is actually the bulb, as you know. So it might be that even in a maintenance contract, changing a bulb is an opportunity for a demonstration project.
Yeah, that's possible. I know that just from the research that I've done on a personal basis on street lighting, getting screw out, screw in type LED upgrades to an existing Cobra head fixture can be tricky, especially if you want to make sure that your light cutoff lines are appropriate, and you're casting light in the right direction and all that. It can be a little tricky. These do create some heat, and there's definitely ventilation considerations that go into designing a replacement package for a single Cobra head. So it's not like one size fits all kind of thing. It can get a little complicated. I think what Steve was envisioning was an entire fixture replacement. So it was, if it's going to be, let us know how much it's going to be to put a whole new fixture on the pole with a built-in LED. But yeah. Green Power is another work group, and what we learned at the Green Team meeting was that that it's about that time that we put together an RFP. And the RFP would be from the township looking for electrical providers. And the idea is, in this RFP, the township can specify, how much green power they're interested in purchasing, whether it's 10%, 20%, 50, 100%. You can even have line items on the RFP that says, give us a price for giving us 50% green power, and then give us a price for 100% green power. And I think I'm not sure what the timeline is, and I didn't really come away with a feeling that it was going to be ready by next month, but.
Yeah, I would add to that, there was a suggestion that the work group call around to, local other townships, for example, see what some other folks around the area have done in terms of green power purchasing. Also, maybe just informally call up some energy providers even before maybe putting, soliciting RFPs. In terms of the RFP itself, it was going to take a little work to figure out exactly how to write it, because I guess there's no exact standard. It's a new topic, it's a new subject area where the township hasn't put out RFPs before, so
Yeah.
it was going to be a little getting up to speed on that.
Yeah, and I think there are some providers in our area that might even be able to help with an RFP. I'm not sure if that's a conflict of interest or not, but we're interested in putting together an RFP that has language that we've never developed before. And who has that? I guess other townships, like you say, power providers, I guess. I'm not sure. So hopefully we can get some guidance and get that ball rolling a little bit. I think another topic was, do we have all of our accounts in this RFP, all of the electric accounts, or is it just some of them? Or
would it be okay to reach out to like a community energy and say, can you send us an example of an RFP you've received?
Well,
something like
that's
that.
I think that's what I was driving at.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I guess I was thinking of someplace like community energy more as a provider of energy than as
Right.
a way to get information
No.
about an RFP itself.
I
But
agree.
I don't know what they do
That's-
and what they
Yeah,
can
I think
provide.
that's right. I think they might well be somebody who would be a good candidate.
Mhm.
But if what we're at an earlier stage in the process and we're just trying to formulate a good RFP that would go out to lots of folks, including maybe community energy, but we don't know exactly all the stuff to ask for, I think, maybe a PICO or a community energy might have, might be able to say, hey, here are some of the ones we've prepared or we've seen that we could look at and figure out what works for us. I'm just brainstorming in terms of
Mhm.
if we're at that sort of, what should we be, requesting? So that's one thought. But
That's good.
I have two comments for you. One, do we know where the township buys power now?
Pico.
Oh, okay. Two, personal experience is experience. We just had someone come in and assemble 12 bids from different providers. And in the setting of Kunda Beverage, we didn't necessarily go for green power, but I bet that they would know green power providers too. And then they basically set up literally an auction for what you want done, and you get the least expensive provider. If we're using PICO, then maybe as a threshold, you could almost pay for your green power by buying some of your other power from somebody perhaps other than PICO, unless there's some issue with, municipalities and PICO that I don't know about.
If I can just wait, in the earlier discussion at the Green Team meeting that I attended, it was clear that simply switching to a green provider was going to be very expensive. They had explored the prices and thought that it was very expensive, and so the township was looking for other ways to do this. The non-green providers are less than PICO, but not all the green providers are.
I think that's what we don't know yet, because the research that had been done at that point, and even as of now, was merely somebody looking at websites, not calling up, on behalf of a large buyer of power. So that's
Right,
why there's the
exactly.
whole
That-
thought of.
But I think Skip was suggesting just switching, and
Oh,
that's why
mhm,
we're going,
right.
why the suggestion was to go the RFP route in order to get some benefit from the quantity that we'd be purchasing.
Well, switching perhaps everything, if you're, quote, allowed to switch, and I'm not sure that you can not use Pico because there might be something about streetlights and things like that. But if you use a non-Pico for 80% and your rates drop enough that you can afford 20% of green, it's a cake and eat it too situation. It's no net increase and yet you've achieved a green objective.
Yeah, that might be one way of looking at it, or maybe it's you get one provider and they give you 80% conventional power and 20% green power. That might be simpler. Yeah, and to your point about the streetlights, I don't know whether that tariff is available from other providers or not. That might be a tariff that we're stuck using Pico with our traffic signals and our streetlights, but I don't know.
And of course, Pico used to provide an option to buy Pico wind power and they stopped it.
Yep. And we did as a township, we did purchase that for some time. I think it was up to 10%, I think we had been purchasing. Up next is building lighting and recommissioning.
So up until last week, those two work groups, which are sort of essentially working together, at least so far, because the idea is that building recommissioning normally would include the lighting systems anyway, so, kind of work at it collectively. So up until recently, we had just been holding off, mainly because we didn't know what was going to be happening with this building. Something's going to be changing, and nobody really knows what exactly yet. We still don't know. So just in order to make some progress at the Green Team meeting in the discussion, basically the two work groups and sort of everyone else there just, agreed it made sense to just go ahead and bring in 2 or 3 companies each to look at the public works building, look at lighting and building recommissioning of that building, since we're still really in a holding pattern on this one. The other idea being somebody from one of the work groups is going to check with Tammy Cohen and with Steve Rossini about some of the other buildings in the township in which the township has some sort of interest, even if it's not outright ownership, but, where, basically, again, are these buildings part of our scope of work? Are we talking about the Kreutzberg Center? Are we talking about the library? And the Art Center. So we kind of need to know what's going on with all these buildings. Originally, the idea was get, companies to look at the whole package all at once, make it more interesting to them, but we're going to at least move ahead with the Public Works building right now.
And that was to get somebody in there to take a look and give us a proposal, right?
Yeah.
To do recommissioning
Yeah,
and lighting,
Is that one of the older buildings? Was that sort of selected because it might be a good candidate, or was it just sort of?
It's really just the
Top of the
only one that we know is going to need some work, so that's the only one we can really start on.
Yeah,
Makes
we know it needs work. We know there's some areas of improvement there.
Yeah.
Good.
We do know that it's one of our largest accounts,
Okay,
building
It's
accounts. Yeah.
good place to start
Yeah.
then.
Right.
The green vehicle fleet, I gave a beautiful summary to them,
Thank you.
from which I got from you. So you want to just give us a quick update?
Yeah,
on
no, I'd be happy to. We have not had any additional Green Fleet team meetings since our last EAC meeting, but we have been doing some work. I've reached out to Villanova and to the school district to see what the chances of partnering on the light vehicle grant from the state is. And the school district is holding off on that grant, thinking in terms of larger vehicles, heavier vehicles. Later in the year, they're expecting a heavy-duty vehicle grant to come forward. They're going to be looking at that, and it seemed like they'd be more than open to working with us if that's something of interest. That would, from the township standpoint, that would probably focus on things like the trash trucks, the dump trucks, the bigger trucks, looking at things like compressed natural gas for those vehicles. So that's the direction with the school district. With Villanova, it seems like they're going to be holding off on the light-duty vehicle grant as well. So we don't have a partner for the light-duty vehicle grant. The deadline's in a few days. The minimum light-duty vehicles is 5. Township sees the need for maybe 1 or 2 in the next couple of years. We'd have to have at least 5. So it doesn't look like we're going to move forward on a grant proposal for light-duty vehicles. I think we could still consider purchasing an efficient vehicle for one of those slots, one of those 2 light-duty vehicle slots, maybe a hybrid. And we're going to kick around and talk about options for looking at maybe there's a hybrid option that could pay for itself in a reasonable period of time in terms of fuel savings, if there's a vehicle that we drive enough to really justify the incremental cost of buying a hybrid. And there's also the possibility that we might be interested in purchasing a used hybrid for less or equal to what we'd pay for a new non-hybrid regular vehicle, regular fuel vehicle. So those are some possibilities to move forward on the light-duty vehicle front. And on the heavier duty vehicles, which is the vast majority of our fuel use is from the dump trucks and the trash trucks and the big vehicles. I think there's some learning that Steve Norsini's been doing. He went to an all-day workshop put on by the state and by some other organizations, and I think there's some essentially fact gathering that we're in the process of doing that could help us decide whether there's some good options on the heavy-duty vehicle front. We're scheduled to have a call tomorrow with the Green Fleet team. So hopefully after that, I'll have a little bit more info on where we stand, particularly on the heavier duty stuff. So
I have one question, and maybe this refers to what you were just talking about the light-duty vehicles, but I noticed in some of the recent Board of Commissioner meeting minutes, it mentioned there was a resolution passed to buy a new 2013 Ford Escape. Could that be instead something like a Ford C-Max hybrid that would get much, much better mileage?
yeah, that's exactly the question. That's exactly the question. And I think the hope was that we would be able to find some state money to offset any incremental cost. That doesn't appear to be likely. So now it's a question of whether the township wants to spend either a little bit more to get something new, or perhaps buy something a little bit smaller and less expensive. For example, a C-Max versus an Escape, or something slightly used, but could still be under warranty, could still have quite a bit of useful life. So all these are the sort of the questions that are, really ultimately in the hands of the township and will be with the board of commissioners. So that's exactly right. It seems like every year they have 1 or 2 small vehicles that would be good candidates for this. It's a question of getting them to focus and decide that they're going to move forward on a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid or something like that.
And I should remind everybody that this grant that you're referring to, I think you said that it basically pays for half
It does.
of the
incremental
costs
of the alternative fuel vehicle.
So basically, if the alternative fuel vehicle is $30,000 and the similar vehicle without that technology would be $20,000,
they would
pay for about $5,000.
That's right, half of the differential of 10,000 in your example.
Yep.
So, it would certainly be great to have the state help, and certainly it would help in terms of doing calculations like payback period and all this, but it's not a grant program that would cover the entire cost of a light-duty alternative fuel vehicle. So I don't think it really should, completely change the decision whether, we get a state grant or not. And, the township had the point that, there's a lot of work and effort that goes into the state grants. Maybe we can decide just to move forward, on our own. So that's where we are.
And I guess that brings me to my next topic, which is the green procurement policy. Ann, do you know when it's going to be? I don't. Okay, I think we were told that it's going, the green procurement policy has been drafted and distributed, and comment periods, happened and all that, and I think it's finalized.
Does the solicitor have to look at it? Was that the next step?
That might have been the next step, yeah. I'm sorry, I don't have my notes in front of me for that one, but from what I recall, that there was no more, hurdles or delays anticipated, and that it was going to be, it had been scheduled for an upcoming commissioners meeting for approval. That's what I remember. So, yeah, I think it might be next month, August. But that, part of the procurement policy basically is that the efficiency of the product that you're buying becomes something that you are required to look into, at least to become aware, make yourself aware of what other options and what the incremental costs are while making these purchasing decisions for the township.
And I think didn't we add something about vehicles in the procurement policy? I think we did add a reference to that in the policy.
The policy that we drafted is quite comprehensive.
Yeah.
So it
It
had
would cover
vehicles in it. Right, building materials, all kinds of office supplies, vehicles, pretty much anything that the township would be buying.
Right.
So in the future, a decision like purchasing a
vehicle.
Ford Escape would be accompanied by we considered buying the C-Max, or we considered buying the Escape Hybrid, but we didn't because here's X, Y, and Z. So obviously that kind of a thought-making process wasn't mandated this time.
Right.
They may have done that, I don't know that, but this policy, or this procurement policy, is going to be something that we're going to have to help the township implement.
Right.
It's not something that's going to be easy for them to do, I don't think. It's actually going to be a learning process.
That's right.
Especially for something like as important and as expensive as a vehicle.
That's right. That's right. And I think you put it well when you say what we're looking for is, them to put the analysis into it. We're not saying you have to buy, a C-Max or any particular thing, but one of the things to think about along with cost and all the other things is the environmental impact, and is there a good green alternative? And do you need the Escape, or can you be fine with the C-Max? And then when you really put that discipline in place to justify it, it may be, we could be fine with a C-Max. So that I think would be a great part of the process. Also help focus attention and get people thinking a little bit outside the box.
Yep. Well, that's all I had for the Green Team meeting. Let's see, our next work group report would be the Sustainability Work Group. Last month, we unfortunately didn't have a WaterSense tip of the month. What about this month?
I'm sorry, but
You have 3?
and second prize. No, I do not have a WaterSense tip for this month either. But I do know I did talk to one of the legislative assistants who is working on the tax holiday for WaterSense products, and he said that he's in discussions with a member of the state assembly who's considering whether to introduce it. So we should know more in a week or two. They've been focused on the whole budget process. So that is, being discussed, and hopefully we'll have a little bit more action by the next meeting.
Okay. Thanks, Sloan. Ann, any news on open space?
Yes, actually, there is. Yes, there is. The Greenways and Open Space Committee was involved in the process of reviewing the proposals that came in response to the RFP that we issued in order to find a consultant to take the township through the drafting of a greenways and open space plan. And after the process of reviewing the proposals and an interviewing process, which took place while I was out of town, I don't know if you participated, Skip, the decision was made to hire as the consultant a company called Simone Collins that some people in the township have worked with before with good results. So I don't know, Skip, if you
Yeah,
have any.
we felt that basically almost any of the candidates would have done a good job. We just thought that Simone might give us one little bit extra bit on this that will be appreciated. Their presentation was very strong. They have the only one on staff that has a traffic person, and we all know that some of our connections will be across busy streets and things like that, and that was a factor in our decision. They have tremendous experience. They're not as pure, so to speak, as some of the other consultants in that they're not just open space like one of the other consultants was the National Lands Trust, but we're not as rural, perhaps, as some of the tracts that Natural Lands Trust takes care of. And on balance, we couldn't go wrong, and I think we did the best we possibly could in picking them.
Thanks, Am. How about Audubon Birdtown?
Well, Birdtown, there hasn't been anything particular that's happened. There are several programs that are being planned. The library is an active partner and is planning probably to have a program in the fall, definitely a bird theme program, perhaps focusing on the extinction of the carrier pigeon. So that's one of the things that's going on. There'll be a bird course offered to the staff of Chanticleer when they have some downtime in the winter. So lots of ideas of ways of promoting interest and awareness of birds in the township.
I got an email just, I guess yesterday about, I think about that. But it also mentioned that Radnor has the distinction, Radnor Birdtown has the distinction of being having the best bird count from the Great Backyard Bird Count. Is that right?
I didn't get that.
Yeah, I just saw.
information. No, you got that email and I did not.
Well, I think among was it in Pennsylvania or is it just in the Delaware Valley? There are only a few bird towns that are right, but we had the highest bird count. So something to be proud of. I know my son and I were part of it. So
Wow, how many
we may have been the only ones ever. I don't know, but I don't know. I mean, how many different species? I think we might have had like 9 or something like that. Yeah, it was pretty neat. Yep. Community environmental education and awareness. I don't have anything for that other than to say that I'm still involved in the Wayne Elementary School PTO Green Team, and we have a new somebody we've been talking to that's going to help get something going this coming year. And if anybody's interested in working with any of the elementary schools, they should contact their PTO because there's groups in all of them. Liaison reports. We only have one. Skip.
Well, we had our original meeting for July was canceled. We had a so-called fill-in meeting, and I was out of state. But I believe the vote was 4-1 to approve the latest plan for the Villa Stratford. And I think in this particular plan, my recollection, and again, I was not at the meeting, is that the building is torn down and, is not salvageable at this point. And it was not, I guess it's a landmark, but it was not especially historical. So
I saw that the consultant brought in, or somebody brought in photographs to prove to the group that it was salvageable, and it did the opposite. That's what I heard. That they looked at the pictures, they said, "Oh, it's not salvageable." I don't know anything about the building, but that's a shame to lose anything old. But I guess it is what it is.
one of the minor charms perhaps is that it'll be all residential, and I think the other proposal was to make the building partially office space. And theoretically, that's a buffer, but it was set back fairly far, so maybe all residential is a fine use.
The Willows, anything new there?
Well, I can tell you a little about the Willows, and this is something I wanted to bring up. I'll bring it up under old business because this is the sustainable parks policy that we had suggested as part of our greenhouse gas action plan be implemented. I went to the parks meeting last month, and they actually held their meeting at the Willows in a nice, like a sunroom of the Willows, and they say they do that once a year. It's part of one of the buildings that they watch over, so it's natural for them. But I was thinking maybe we should try that some month. Possibly.
Is it televised?
It is not televised. It's totally off the grid. It's off the grid. That's okay. I mean, it's open to the public. There's plenty of seating. But anyway, I was thinking about maybe seeing if you guys would like to try that next month. And one of the reasons I was saying next month is, Jim here has to go on vacation. There's nobody to run the TV cameras. They'd have to bring somebody in to cover them. It's just a thought. I still haven't talked to anybody at the township to see whether what kind of announcement we need to make about that. But if you guys are interested, I'd like to do that. But as an aside. But the meeting went well. What I kind of came away with, and that we had they offered great suggestions on how to make this something that has an impact. And basically, they said instead of being a policy, they thought it would be more appropriate to be more like a mission statement. If you recall, the green parks or the sustainable parks policy, we had talked about reduced mowing, and we had talked about using recycled materials, mulch from the township, wood chips, and we talked about planning or at least having a thoughtful process on how herbicides, insecticides were used. And they thought that kind of stuff was a great idea, but they said instead of being a policy, they thought it'd be more appropriate to be a mission statement, something that would be then published on their website. It'd be under Parks and Rec. It would have a statement to say, here's how we think, why we're here, and and how we're going to take care of these parks. And then when it comes time to decide how to mow a particular parcel of land, that then become a policy or whatever. So it would be more like a guiding principle that then that then sort of guides how individual decisions are made on what to do and with weeds on the trail or something like that.
Was the thinking that it would be easier to sort of craft policies by particular parcels, or to try out different approaches in different places, and rather than having one big overarching rule, or was it?
If you think about what it would take to put together an all-encompassing plan on how to manage all the different kinds of lands that we own. We own fields, woods, stream banks, gardens around buildings,
Right.
median strips, all trails and all that kind of stuff. So can you imagine how complicated that would be to nail down
Yeah,
what we're doing at each one of those things?
so that you could spend a lot of time on the policy rather than, hey, why don't we try different stuff, see what works, tailoring it to.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
Josh?
Yeah, go ahead.
Are there existing, quote, guidelines now? I mean, number one, is there a mission statement now, number one? And number two, is there a written policy right now?
Well, I can tell you that there is a township mission statement. And Bob Z was there, and he said it does exist and it needs to be changed, I think he said. I don't know why, but I don't know that there is a mission statement for just the individual Parks and Rec department. And this is kind of what that would be. Now, whether it it merges with the overall township mission statement, I'm not sure if that's what happens or not. But So, yeah, what was your other?
My other question is there an existing parks policy or policy manual, procedures, et cetera? In
Well,
writing.
I'm sure there are procedures, and they were very quick to point out that, pesticides and herbicides are applied by licensed individuals. It's the law that they do that.
It's also policy then, too.
Yeah, but they made the point, they say, we don't make policy that says we have to follow the law. It's the law, we follow it. They made it very clear that, in that kind of, decisions on how to apply, how to protect oneself or to protect the public against, improper pesticide use is the law, so no need to make a policy about that. But in terms of, did I say something weird?
Well, I mean, the policy is whether you're going to use toxic pesticides or not. Obviously, I mean, that is the policy decision. If you're going to use them, then yes, you have to follow, the federal guidelines. But it's a step back, is I think what our concern is.
Yes, our concern is that, so what they had suggested, well, first we'll make this mission statement to say that it would include their thoughts on how pesticides and herbicides are going to be applied, like what's going to be their guiding principle. We, as an EAC, a year ago said that, we did our research and we said that we do not believe that Radnor Township should immediately cease all use of herbicides. We said that there is an appropriate time and place to do that, assuming that all precautions are followed and all that. So that was our stance a year or so ago when we had that topic came up and we were asked to look into that. But then we said, we think that the application of it should be, minimized if possible, as much as possible. And how to minimize it, we weren't about to say, okay, well, you should do it X amount of times a month. That's not our job. Our job is to say, develop a policy or develop a mission statement or tell us what your thoughts are on how to do this, and then here's different ways we're going to accomplish that goal. And one of them might be, using mulch, as much as possible from the township,
So,
that kind of stuff.
so where did we leave it? Is it something we should be working with Parks and Rec group, and maybe with Tammy as a sort of I like the sort of model of the goose, subcommittee with Board of Health. Is this another situation where it would make sense for us to link with Parks and Rec on a sort of a formal or more going forward basis?
Yeah, I think so. The way we left it was, we have given our ideas on a sustainable parks policy,
Right.
which is now not a policy, but whatever. We had given them our thoughts on that.
Right.
They have the in writing.
Right.
It's a couple pages long. It doesn't go into anything into detail, but
Yeah.
it kind of mentions everything that we're
Gives
thinking.
ideas.
Yeah, and what they said is that they thanked us for that. They're going to review it and get back to us.
Okay.
Now, having said that, the goose problem, for instance, came up after we wrote that. And I think that if we could open a dialogue with the Parks Commission, we could help them give even more ideas on how to develop a mission statement.
Right. And we have, I'm sorry, but we have Luke usually is our liaison.
Mhm. Yeah, he was at the meeting, yeah.
He was at the meeting, so, is the kind of thing and I guess we have a parks, we have a sustainable parks working group. Is that one of our? green
No, it's
teams?
not one of
Oh,
our,
okay.
it's not one of our.
But it was on the
It's on our action plan.
action plan.
Mhm.
I guess the question is, should we have a little group that's working on that, or is it enough that it's with the Parks and Rec?
Yeah, I think, well, I'm up to see what you guys think, but I definitely want to give them a chance to talk about it themselves and see what kind of ideas see what they think this thing should look like when it's done. And hopefully we can use Luke as our liaison at that, in this early stages. And then if he thinks that, they could use some guidance or some, they want to hear more of our ideas, then I think we should have a work group or something.
Josh, I have a question. When this came up in connection with the trail issue before the EAC, the Riverkeeper representatives that came offered, their horticulturalists offered to work with the township on a portion of the trail to demonstrate what could be done without herbicides. But I gather no one followed up on that offer, so we don't have any effort in the township to try a less herbicide-intensive management program?
I believe you are correct. Yes.
Because I mean, I think it would be great to turn to resources outside the township and try, and I think it's maybe something that we should advocate for, to get some exposure to what might happen if you didn't use herbicides.
Mm-hmm.
Josh?
Yeah.
I have a comment that emission statement seems to me to be comparatively a static thing, and the whole purpose of the EAC is to interact on an ongoing basis. So I mean, if the mission statement replaced in some way environmentally friendly policies, that would be a negative. If it's to complement it or set the stage for a discussion from time to time on different things like herbicide use or goose problems, that's okay. But I don't think we should recommend trading policy input for mission statement input only.
Only.
Right.
But if they were side by side, that would be fine, right?
To kind of follow up on that, my question was, are they going to take the ideas that you provided from the EAC, and that a lot of that would turn into the mission statement, and it's going to be a fulsome sort of mission statement, or is it going to be like a short mission statement like they usually are? And if that's the case, then who's coming up with the policy? Because I thought that was sort of where we had value to add. Another observation is now, assuming that the procurement policy goes into effect, that I suppose would weigh in on the subject of pesticides and insecticides and like everything else, right? So,
I mean, I think it does if we advocate for it, but I think that you're right, Skip, that we need to be more involved going on rather than just having a mission statement, because the procurement policy doesn't mandate that you use only green products. It has an exception if there's too much of an expense associated with the green product. And in this context, I think what's more important is if the green option wouldn't perform as well. So I suspect that the people who are used to using herbicides are going to say, well, there's no green alternative that does the same thing, so never mind. And the procurement policy absolutely leaves that option.
I think the telltale is that it's a green procurement policy, not a green procurement mission statement. I mean, I think policies are going to be more detailed. Policies are subject to much more frequent review and amendment.
I can just give you this example that keeps coming to my mind because it's topical, and that would be habitat modification, say around Fenimore Pond or something like that, where presently there's a goose issue. If we were to suggest that one of the ways to control the problems of geese fouling the pond and creating an algal growth problem and denuding the banks of vegetation, one of the ways to correct that would be to allow native grasses to grow tall around the pond. You can imagine that one of the responses to that would be some comment from residents saying, you've changed the look of the pond, maybe access is somewhat different now, it's not the same as it used to be, why did you do that? And with with a properly crafted policy, or maybe it's a mission statement or something, you could have an answer to that. You say, well, our goal is to do this, is to use natural methods to reach our goals. And in this case, our goal was reducing the overpopulation of geese, and that's one of the natural ways of doing that. And at least you had something to back up why you did it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the example I come up with.
Yeah.
That makes sense, because even if having a sustainable parks policy was something that was part of the greenhouse gas action plan, I mean, that right there is one reason to have this policy, but it might not be the only one. You know, there might be obviously there would be other factors that would go into the mission statement. So that makes sense to have both.
Okay, other old business. Is there any other old business?
I think, did I mention last time that I did, I think it came after the last meeting, but I did get some information from Tredyffrin Township on their drop-off recycling at their township building. Yeah.
I think you did.
Okay, yeah, and she did send me the name of a company they're using and some details on how much money they make, which is, you know, they make like less than $100 a year on it, but, you know, it is available. So I'll forward it off to Radnor's recycling person. It's no longer Peggy.
No, it's Lee McVeigh.
Lee McVeigh.
Leah.
Okay.
Leah or Lee? I can't,
Leah.
sorry, I forget her
Okay.
name.
I'll forward that to Leah. Anything on the goose?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I guess this is old business. We have formed a goose group, and it's gonna be Steve, Dan, and myself, because, well, first of all, Dan's on vacation for a while, and we wanted to get something started, so I joined in too. Steve and I have already made several visits to some of the areas of concern. Interestingly, geese molt in June and July, and they like to molt in places that have water, because during the molting phase they can't fly, and they think that water would be is a safe retreat. So when you go off to these ball fields, there's no geese right now, not a single goose to be found, and no goose poop to be found either out there. So it's funny, we're going to need to make another set of trips, hopefully closer to the October meeting when we're required to present our findings to the Board of Commissioners. There were lots of geese to be found at the willows and at the private pond there that's not far from the willows, and we observed what may have been, you know, some adverse environmental effects from these geese. A lot of algal growth in the waters, banks with some tamped down soils, you know, real hard packed soils. It tends to happen with geese. They tend to pack the soils down, and the grass doesn't grow there, and you tend to get kind of erosion problems.
Right.
So we saw a lot of that, or some of that, and so I don't think we'll be doing any more site visits for a while. And so now what we decided to do would be to do just a little bit more online research on adverse environmental effects of
Yep.
populations of geese, and then sort of roll right into what might be our environmentally preferred management technique or
Right.
techniques, which in this case it's starting to seem like this is going to be a multi-pronged approach to management.
Good, good. I think I mentioned to you, Josh, my swim club, which is the Mill Dam Club that we talked about a little bit last time. I've approached the manager to say, you know, can you give me a sense of how the goose control efforts are going? Because my sense is that it's going pretty well because of the dog you mentioned, and 2 dogs, and they also have a low sort of rabbit fence around the pond. The pond appears fairly free of algae, relative to some of the ponds that I've seen in the township. They're not hunting the geese, and so it's not very dramatic efforts they're making, although they do have a dog there at all times, or 2. So I will forward the information I get from the manager, and, you know, that may be something we can use as an effort that's got some success. We may be able to find other success stories as well around where, you know, it seems like they are able to discourage geese from,
Sloan.
Yeah.
One thing you might want to ask him if he notices an effect from this, they periodically dramatically change the water level because they can.
that's right.
And I'm not sure the other township ponds have the ability to raise and lower the water as readily as they do.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We
That's a
did
good
check,
point.
we checked the willows, and they cannot change the willows pond level. And that's one of the management techniques I had read about. I'm not saying this is one of the ones we're going to go with, but that is to raise the water level right when they start nesting, and what that does is it sort of floods their preferred nesting areas. Not really
Yeah,
sure that would even work at the willows, but it's just
Yeah. I mean, as you probably know, the mill dam would lower but not raise.
well, they could start with a lower level and then allow it to fill, is what I'm saying,
No, I think that's a very good idea. I'm just mentioning in terms of Skip's question about whether, one of the ways that they're successful is by dropping the water and bringing it back up. But I will ask that, and
You know what, if you could ask them, people are there mostly during the summertime, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And like I said, that is a period of, generally a molting period where they're
Yeah.
fairly stationary.
how is it in the off season?
Yeah, what's it like in the off-season? Do they have off-season problems? Because there were, I think we counted 10 geese in the pond, the Mill Dam Pond, on our trip. Not that, we're not trying to get rid of all geese here. I mean,
Right.
some geese are okay, and 10 geese might be fine,
Yeah.
for all I know. But, do they harass the geese during molting season, which might not be an appropriate thing, I think that, I'm not sure if it's illegal or not, but, all those kind of, I would
Yeah.
get a broad sense of, or
What
maybe
their
I'd say a
techniques
more detailed
Yeah,
sense of
no, I
like,
think that's right.
what the problems are,
How's, what they're doing.
Yeah.
Different seasons, okay.
thanks.
Fireworks, too.
Fireworks. Is there any other old business? Any new business? There being no public comment, we can adjourn our meeting. Thanks.